All right, you tinkerticians, electricians, repairmen, and people that just like to watch videos about electronics. What you're looking at there is a computer supply case, and inside is a 100 milliwatt AM transmitter. Now, over the years, I built AM transmitters. Most of the times, it was to relay a signal. And I told you about back in the day when I worked in TRW, we had so many computers on inside that an AM radio wouldn't work. So you had to use FM, and you can only get one station. I can't remember the name of the station, and they must have said it a billion times, but it was called the Rock of New Jersey. The call letters didn't come up to my, no, it wasn't K Rock. Well, anyway, we needed to hear the baseball game inside the building. So I put an AM radio up at the front window, got the station perfect, took the output, the audio, put it into a Radio Shack FM microphone. I put resistors in it. I put a patch into it, and I put my own little plug on the side, and it would take the AM broadcast station, the audio, go into the handheld microphone, which had been patched now, and it would transmit the baseball game on FM inside the building. And I told you I got in a fight with a guy. He was telling me, "Oh, the game is on FM. I've been listening to it." Yeah, he's been listening to my transmitter the last 2 days for it was the Yankee series back in the 70s. Well, anyway, I built lots of transmitters, but I noticed this one thing that kept showing up. I would build a transmitter, and I put audio into it, and at the other end, I'm listening to it, and when the music would get quiet, I hear a pretty good loud hum, and right away, it's your power supply. That's what you'd say. It's your power supply. And you're looking at the waveform of the power supply, and maybe you go in and add some caps, and maybe a bleeder resistor, hoping wouldn't do it. Now, when I built this unit here, I was up on this one group, and this one guy kept taking my schematic that I was presenting. I was working on it. He kept redrawing it and screwing it up, and then he started answering questions about my schematic. I won't tell you what his little thumbnail picture looks like, but once I mentioned it, someone says, "I knew that guy." The guy just wants to play make-believe. Well, anyway, I had this hum. I had a perfect supply. I had several professional supplies feed in this amplifier or this transmitter, and it was still getting the hum. So I just said it in the group. I said, over the years, I've built AM transmitters, and I always had hum, no matter how good my supply is. Right away, you got to have the right kind of capacitors. They go, specially wound capacitors. They go off in all these tangents, which is all bullshit. And one guy drops in, and he says something like, "It sounds like hum modulation to me." That's all he said. So I look at his other comments in these groups. I notice he's a man of very few words. He comes in with the real answer. It could be hum modulation. So I didn't go back in the group and say, "Oh, what do you mean by hum modulation?" No, you got the internet. You got Google. So I Google it. And here's what hum modulation is. This transmitter, that antenna that's coming up out of the middle, goes off into space, gets on the AM, not on the AM, on the AC line, and it comes back into the AC and it goes around in a circle. So the oscillator, which is what a transmitter is, it's modulated in AM, amplitude modulation, goes off through the air, goes into the wiring in the walls, gets on the wire, because it's a 100 milliwatt transmitter, it's quite, not real powerful, goes on that AC wire, comes screaming into the unit, goes through the power supply like it's not even there, and gets back into the circuit. But what did it bring in? It brought in the frequency that you're operating on. It got modulated by the AC signal in the wall, on the wire. And now that mixed signal, which it's heterodyned, it's mixed. And now it comes in through the power supply, and it gets into your transmitter, and it causes hum. And you start reading about hum modulation. When they install an AM transmitter, It's one of the nightmares and the banes where a guy gets it all done, and it's really bad. And they try to, when they put it, years ago when they were building AM transmitters, they did it a certain way so they wouldn't run into these problems. And somebody will come along and, they'll want the office over in one spot, and it moves another thing, and all of a sudden, when the transmitter goes on the first day, it has hum modulation in it because it's just, things are just in the wrong places, right? So it's called hum modulation. But one guy, and he was from the UK, and all he did was say, sounds like hum modulation. Now, there's something in your whole life you keep getting, it keeps pestering you. You build these transmitters, and you always have this really bad hum on them. And it's all because the AC line, I'll tell you the solution. The AC line, you have to put a 0.1 at high voltage, a 1,000-volt capacitor, non-polarized, from each side of the AC line to the chassis, or ground. And what that does is any RF that's coming in through the line cord, which would be hum modulated AC, or AC modulating the carrier frequency coming in through the line cord. So by putting a capacitor there, it shunts it to ground, and it can't get into your circuit. And if you look at a 5-tube, all American 5-tube AC DC radios, the kitchen radios, on the AC, you'll notice they have a capacitor there, and you're like, what's that for? That's for hum modulation. Now, when you really do it right, you put one on each lead if you're using a non-polarized plug, because you can put the plug in one way, and the RF is going to the chassis. You take the plug out and reverse it. Now the hum modulation capacitor isn't helping you. So what I do is I put one cap from each side of the AC to the chassis. Also, the safety ground across the two HOTS. The two AC lines, I put another 0.1 across it, so it forms like a delta configuration. But I just wanted to tell you about hum modulation. And there's people out there, I knew that. How come you didn't know that? Everybody knows that. I didn't know that. Right? It's just like, I won't show you a picture of the fish tank. I'm able to grow plants now with no algae on them because I got some snails in there. All the years, you gotta add more CO2. Cut the hours back. You got to do this. You got to buy that. You got to get some. You got to get some Amano shrimp. Put some snails in there. They're bladder snails. They're very small, and I have to pick them out because they're actually, some of them are starving to death. There's so many of them, and there's so little algae. They pick out every single strand of algae. They go up and down on all the plants, and that was the secret to Jimmy James. That's what the guy's name. My father's friend at work. Actually, he came down from Pennsylvania with Jimmy James and Mert. I don't know Mert's last name. But anyway, I went over his house. He was a real good fisherman. And he had this fish tank. Might have been a 50-gallon in the cellar. And he had plants that were wrapping around in the tank. And he had I think it was a 4-light fixture above the tank on the ceiling. And that was the light. And some might have come in through the window. But he had no algae. But he had lots of snails. And then he would pinch and break the snails and feed them to the fish. But he had Hygrophila polysperma in the tank, Sagittarius, and water sprite. Those are the 3 plants he gave me that require very little light, and he could grow them. He could grow them without any problem. Got to remember, he had the snails in there, so he's not going to get algae. Every leaf is going to stay perfectly clean. And now I'm going to forget the name of the stupid. Oh man, this sucks when you forget a word. In other words, when the plant is converting light, photosynthesis. Now we're gonna have trouble saying the word. But in other words, if the plant is clean, it's very productive. If it starts getting algae on it, the plant starts to have problems. The leaf starts to die, and then that starts to attack the plant. All right. So in hindsight, I bet Jimmy James didn't know the secret was the snails, because one time I asked him, I said, how are you able to grow these plants? And he gave me some. And my father asked him at work, and he says, oh, I'm using it wasn't Vitalites, back in then were Growlux. So my father bought me a hooded light with a one single Growlux, and it would grow the water sprites floating on the top, and little babies would come off, and I thinned the herd out every once in a while. But Hycrophilia polysperma, that didn't do as well. And I know why. That's bottom. You got to bottom feed that with a lot of fertilizer. And Jimmy James's tank was just loaded with guppies, and he was feeding them. They were pooping. The poop was feeding the plants. He had a good ecosystem going there. The Sagittarius, I didn't have really good luck with that either. It needs more light. He had four long fluorescent lights over the tank, and I only had a single up towards the front. It was more to light the fish up more than to grow plants. If you were going to grow plants, it'd be in the middle of the tank, not all the way up towards the front. Well, anyway, that was one of the secrets I finally, that was like within this year that I figured out it turned out to be the snails were the secret. And I was able to do what Jimmy James did. And then when I was on the groups, right away, oh, you need a larger capacitor. Oh, you're using the wrong diodes. You're using the wrong, what was you call it? The regulators. You got a better regulator in there. And I'm reading, going through it. And then finally this one guy comes in and he just says, look into hum modulation. And that message is for me. Those other guys are like, he's off subject with that. No, he was right on. And I read up on it. I added some 0.1s at 1,000 volts to the AC line coming into this. It's got that nice connector on the back, that regular 3-prong connector. Let's hopefully it stayed in the frame. There it is. Yeah, on-off switch works. And then at the front, this is where the MP3 player goes in. I know you're going to say, MP3 players, I have Bluetooth, blah, 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 blah. But I had this 15 years ago. I had this operating, the circuit. Now, I don't remember when I put it in the box, but I had MP3 type of, a Bluetooth type of capabilities using this box. I could run my MP3 player and in this, and I had thousands of songs on it. And then any time during the day, because it would repeat, and I could put it on shuffle and all that, and I could turn any of my radios on and listen to music without commercials. All right, that's what this thing it became. And a lot of people still build these so they can get newer tunes to come out of their old radios, and you can buy them. But I wanted to build one because I kept having trouble with the hum, and I fell for you have a bigger capacitor, or maybe you need a bleeder on the output of the power supply. And then the person, you're not shielding it right. No, it turned out to be hum modulation. I think that's it. I hope you learned something. That's it.